Hi, I'm Ross, Lifetime Natural Bodybuilder. Hope you're all doing well. In this video, I'm going to talk about rep ranges for bodybuilding. Before I start though, if I could ask you to consider giving the video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it, and subscribing to see more true natural bodybuilding videos. I also offer online coaching exclusively for natural bodybuilders. Check out the description for the link to my website. Okay, so we'll get straight into it now. My most used rep range over the last, say 12 years of training has predominantly been 5 to 12. That's where I tend to spend the most of my time. My favourite rep range is between 5 and 8. I really enjoy those kind of low to moderate rep numbers for a number of reasons that I'm going to discuss now. So first point, pros and cons of both, low reps and high reps. Well, I'd say the main pro of the lower rep ranges is that you're able to do more frequent workouts because you're generally going to develop less DOMs. Your muscles aren't going to hurt as much, they're not going to be sore for long, so it lends itself better to high frequency training like full body training. It works really, really well for full body training, doing sets of 5 to 8. Generally the DOMs isn't going to be too bad, certainly not as bad as if you're doing 12 to 20 reps. So I like full body training with lower reps. You could even maybe fluctuate as the week progresses from low to moderate to high. You could start off with maybe sets of 5 on your compound movements on the Monday session, then maybe sets of 8 on the second session, and then perhaps more isolation work on the last session, focusing on sets of 12 to 15, maybe 20 reps. That works very well because then you've got the 2 days recovery to kind of get rid of those DOMs before the next full body session. Another pro of low rep training, at least in my opinion, is that it forces you to become a little bit more mindful of the reps that you're doing. You don't really want to be wasting a rep. You don't really want to be wasting a rep on, sets of 15 to 20, but it really just enforces it, and I think develops good habits. You've only got 5 reps to a set. You're going to make sure those reps count. It just forces you to become a lot more mindful and really concentrate on the quality of each of those reps, which is a really good thing. If you can start to develop a pump on low rep sets, and I think that's a really promising attribute to your training that will carry over really, really well when you do transition to moderate to high reps. So one of the more obvious downsides of low reps is the potential increase in risk of injury, general wear and tear, even if the overall volume, the overall tonnage might be slightly lower. For example, 5x5, 100 kilos compared to 3x12 at 75, the tonnage is slightly more on the higher reps. But there's going to be more of those reps of the 5x5 that are more taxing, more debilitating on the central nervous system, heavier on the joints in general, even if that tonnage is perhaps a little bit lower. So I'm under no illusions that the risk is probably greater, and tends to be more debilitating on your CNS and more likely to induce kind of fatigue, especially if you're close to maybe being under the weather, if your immune system is slightly compromised. A real heavy session for low to moderate reps will more than likely kind of push you over the edge. I would say more chance of that happening with lower reps compared to moderate to higher reps, which tends to be a little bit more easy and forgiving in terms of recovery. Despite the increased DOMs and actual muscle soreness from the higher reps, just the general kind of malaise that builds up from the heavier training is quite noticeable at times. So I would say one of the main benefits of higher rep training is the ability it has to improve your mental toughness, your willpower, and your pain tolerance, which are all very important attributes. Maybe not necessarily for bodybuilding, but I think in general they're good things to have, good skills to develop. I guess you can call them skills or attributes to work on. High rep training is going to allow you to do that perhaps more than low rep training. Going for a set of 12 to 20 is sometimes extremely painful, whereas a set of 3 to 7 generally is not going to be that painful at all. You're not going to build up that kind of muscle soreness during a set. Certain exercises you can go really extreme. For instance, the squats, breathing squats up to a set of 20, that will really salt the men from the boys. Very, very debilitating training. And I think, there's a lot to be said of incorporating training styles like that into your workouts just for the mental toughness alone and what it does to you in terms of developing character maybe not necessarily bodybuilding physique. So that's one big bonus, I would say. Another possible bonus is that I think it personally, from my point of view anyway, it can sometimes help to condition the muscle and improve vascularity. And yes, vascularity would be predominantly genetic. There's a lot more variables that can affect that as well, in terms of your food intake, your water intake, a whole host of variables that will affect that. But I do think maybe moving towards higher rep ranges more consistently can have an impact on your vascularity and the conditioning of the muscle, the way it looks, to a certain extent at least. It may be very subtle. I think over a number of years of incorporating high rep training, high rep work into your training, you'll start to look slightly different when you're lean. I'm not saying that the muscles are going to change in terms of their appearance, but the vascular system may be slightly improved. This is just my opinion from anecdotal evidence, but it's something that I believe in. I think if you train for 10 years with predominantly low reps, and then you train for 10 years with predominantly higher reps, your vascular system will look different. So another big bonus of the higher rep training is the impact it has on your cardiovascular system. Obviously really, really helpful, when you're doing 15 to 20 reps on maybe like an overhead press or a squat. It's very demanding on the cardio system. So you can use your training to actually help your cardio, as opposed to spending too much time, doing cardio outside of the weight training. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but there's clearly an impact, a positive impact that it has on your cardio system that you probably wouldn't otherwise get with lower rep ranges like 5. I would also say that it helps to improve muscle control, especially when you're in a fatigued state, and this can be very helpful for posing. It can be very good for that. The ability to stay contracted when you're really fatigued, kind of when you're breathing hard. High rep training really transitions well into that. Something again that you wouldn't necessarily get with the lower rep stuff. So I would feel confident in training any body part and feel that it would be of some use to me. Training any body part in the very low rep ranges, say 3 to 6, other than maybe forearms. It just feels too uncomfortable on the there aren't many forearm exercises you'd be doing anyway. One of them would be wrist curls. I wouldn't do low reps on that. It would definitely be higher, probably no less than 8, if not more likely 12 to 20. And then back as well tends, in my opinion at least, to kind of lend itself better to higher reps than say chest or shoulders. It's much easier to perform like a heavy set of 6 on the dumbbell chest press than it is to perform a heavy set of 6 on the low row machine. It's much more easy for your form to break down when you're closer to that point of fatigue. So for me at least, the rep ranges would be slightly higher on back work, as opposed to the pressing movements that I think feel more confident with the lower rep ranges. I might go down low on the deadlift, for example. Obviously the bent row, at the moment I'm doing a bent row cycle, so I'm doing sets of 5, fairly heavy, but that's probably as low as I go, and that's one of the only exercises that I would do for reps as low as 4 or 5. I'd feel much more comfortable going maybe 6, definitely 7 and 8 upwards. So yeah, every other body part, legs especially, my quads have always grown very, very nicely from low rep squats. They feel a lot thicker when I start to improve the amount of weight I'm doing on the squat, even if the sets are maybe 2, 3, 4 or 5, quite low rep sets. They respond really well, and I'll use Olympic weightlifters as an example to show this. Predominantly their training consists of very low rep squats. They may do a little bit of high rep work, but predominantly for the most part it's lower rep, high frequency, a lot of sets over the course of a week, in that 1 to 5 rep mark, really looking more down towards that 1 to 3. But their thighs are fantastic, really, really well developed. Every single Olympic weightlifter has great quads because they're doing a lot of squatting, a lot of back squatting, a lot of front squatting. You can see from these video clips, the level of development in the quads that they have. So that's one example that you can develop, large muscles predominantly from very high, very low rep ranges. And sure, they'd be doing some other stuff on top, but it would be a small percentage in comparison to the squatting. Another great example would be arm wrestlers. generally their arm development is fantastic, especially in the biceps. If they train their triceps more seriously, they'd have tremendous arms. But there's no doubt their biceps are very well developed, and again, predominantly they're training, for the most part, low rep, heavy curls, dumbbell or barbell or strict negatives on the preachers. They do a lot of heavy work, and it shows in their development. And for me, back when I kind of first started training biceps, not when I first started training, but like maybe 3 or 4 years after I started moving towards the really heavy bicep work, a lot of cheat curls, dumbbell and barbell work, and my biceps really became very well developed as a consequence of that. And I'll return to that training, or at least include some of that into my bicep training once this elbow has recovered. So yeah, just 2 really good examples there to show that low rep training really does build muscles. You don't have to categorize it into power, strength, hypertrophy and endurance. It's not as simple as that. It's not black and white. Every rep range will have some effect on it's the ability to build muscle, perhaps some more so than others. I'm not putting it out there as to what I believe is the best rep range. I'm just going through the pros and cons, giving you some anecdotal evidence of what I've seen and what I can see out there with some examples. So just another quick point to finish, and that's pre-exhaustion. I think pre-exhaustion is a fantastic technique, and why I'm bringing it up for this video is that it's the best of both worlds. You can do higher reps on the isolation and then move over to the compound and do your lower rep set. Say for example, pec flies, you go for a set of 15, reaching failure. So you get the benefits of the higher rep stuff. Then you go to your flat barbell bench press. You load up a weight that you might be able to do for maybe usually fresh 8 reps, 9, 10 reps, and you go straight into the compound and you do that, and you might manage maybe 4, 5 or 6. So a lot less than usual, but the pump would be crazy. The pump would be really extreme. You start to feel those muscles a lot quicker than usual because of the pre-exhaustion. You get the benefits of the lower rep stuff on the compound movement. So I really, really rate pre-exhaustion. I think it's a very underused advanced technique. Really, really good. So that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, or at least found it somewhat informative. If you did enjoy it, then please give it a thumbs up and let me know what you thought of the video. What's your opinions on either low or high rep training in the comment section below. I'd be interested to hear. And again, just a reminder for anyone interested in online coaching exclusively for natural bodybuilders, for a free consultation, there's a sign up form on my website. So go check it out. Links in the description box. Thank you once again. Stay strong.